But that's essentially the bill. It's an idea that I'm putting before the delegation of how we can really focus on driving resources to the ecosystem clusters that exist within the county, within the broader region that we exist. And I love you guys' support.
Thank you, Delegate Lewis. Colleagues, is there any questions in reference to this innovative, wonderful idea that Delegate Jazz Lewis has put in as a bill? Is there any questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, go ahead, Delegate.
And one of them, and good morning, Delegate Lewis. Is there any way in here, well, first, how you gonna raise the funds? And I read the bill. Tell me a little more about that. And then also, is there language in here that you can put about the importance of, I like to see some language regarding some diversity, as you award these, the money. I think that's important. We have to be intentional about it. As you know, we don't do very well with that in Prince George's, with representation. How can we make sure that we put that in there from the beginning? I like to see some language about that.
I'm 100% there with you. So in the bill, I don't require a set amount in establishing the fund. I think that the first thought for me was once we establish the entity and do the study first, then we would kind of know based off of that ecosystem cluster that's available, how much money we would then need to get, right? With it being, the goal of it being quasi-governmental was the hope that we could attract not just public dollars, whether that's from the county or from the state to put in this, but private dollars, frankly. You know, if we get Bowie State involved, University of Maryland involved, some of these other anchor institutions, we can get their alumni or partners to maybe want to partner within this. I knew from talking to a couple of them, you know, they're not going to want to give to a wholly governmental fund that they feel like they won't have any more control over. But that was the thought. But it's kind of a two-part. The first is the board and the study, and the second part would be acquiring the money. But I'm 100% open and supportive of structuring, particularly the board and the awarding of the grants, to make sure Mr. Representative of the community who lives here.
I like to see some language regarding the board diversity and keeping in mind the award to make sure that we have inclusion and diversity.
Is Delegate Pena, is there a motion in reference to?
Well, I think we need time to draft it.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, so I don't know that we're ready to vote on it today. And I think if council can assist me, or the delegate himself can come up with some language, that would be great. But he gets it. He knows what I'm, talking about.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Delegate. Delegate Lewis.
Oh, I will work with her in drafting that language. I'm 100% with that.
Okay. Is there any other questions from our colleagues? So we're asking it that we have this for next week so we can be able to vote it out.
If I can ask the lawyer, the attorney, if he can draft something that deals with the composition of the board, having some diversity and inclusion, and as the grants are being given, to make sure that that's also part of the equation. Can the lawyer work on that, please?
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I can have that drafted for next week. So you want to ensure that there's diversity in the composition of the board members, as well as the people receiving, or entities receiving grants under the program?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
I support that.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
Delegate Turner?
Madam Chair, okay, now, so I can be clear and understand, this is going to turn out to be a study?
What Delegate Pena is asking for, to have some more inclusion in reference to diversity, and also making sure that awardees are identified, because we don't want we want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity. Now, in reference to a study, Delegate Lewis stated in reference to a study to make sure that we can be able to find out the funding
Yeah.
source.
Yeah,
Okay,
The funding source of where we're going to get the funding for this innovative technology. And I think it's a wonder. I'm actually very happy to see this bill come across. Okay. I hope I
Okay.
answered your question. If not, Delegate Lewis can add on.
yeah, I just wanted, Delegate Turner, it's a two-part, really, and honestly, a three-part bill. The first part is establishing like this independent agency and its board, and which we're going to add some language, which will be an amendment on diversity there.
yeah,
The second part is the board is going to commission a study, right? So I think the money that's put in there is really so that they can have a study to figure out within the boundaries of Prince George's County and the assets that we have, the anchor institutions, how we can find the clusters that we can really grow and do our own version of biotech for our area, right? And that way, we're not looking at other folks like, well, they got this. Like, well, how are we leveraging our own assets in a very high way that can take us to another level? The third part would be the issuing of grants and awards to companies within that cluster to scale. The question that Delegate Pena-Melnick had was like also finding where that exact source of money is going to go, which is a focus. But I think the big part for me is first like making sure we can get the board structure right, something that the delegation is all bought into, the study done such that we know where we need to focus our efforts. And I can imagine it could be a combination of course, direct awards and grants, but also even, later down the line, tax credits of some sort for people within those clusters.
okay. Delegate Bonds is on, Madam Chair.
I see him. Okay,
Okay.
Delegate Bonds, you have a question? Thank you, Vice Chair.
All right, thank you so much, Madam Chair. So, Delegate Lewis, obviously, I'm heavy in trying to represent our small businesses, and I love the idea. My thought is centered around TEDCO, because TEDCO is already in this space of biotechnology and some other things. There's also the Prince George's County Tech Council that is doing a lot centered around biotechnology. There's a new entity called the Prince George's Tech Council, or Tech Prince George's, I'm sorry, that is also in this space, as well as creating incubators and other things. So for me, is not to duplicate what is already being done. And I'm not sure if you have spoken to any of those entities, but it would make sense because if those entities are doing what you're envisioning, then I think the only thing that they need is resources. And then my last question would be centered around, I believe what Chairman Pena-Melnick had asked, is where's the money coming from to create such an initiative? And do you have a dollar amount, at least in mind, on what this is going to cost us?
Delegate Lewis.
Yeah, so I've spoken to Troy at TEDCO, who's very supportive of the idea. I have not spoken to Tech Prince George's, so we'll reach out to them on what they're working on. Yeah, I think my approach is a couple years ago, several years ago, we had an Augustine Commission that kind of did this for the state. They didn't initially set aside how much they would need to grow these clusters across the state in the study. After they did the study, they started figuring out how they could apply the resources the state could bring to bear, whether in tax credits, whether in direct grants, at that point. So that's to say that like I don't have an exact dollar figure for you. I think the study will inform that for us, honestly. But having not been new here, once you introduce a bill, it is the will of the bodies too, so I'm open to you guys' thoughts and concerns. I will work on that amendment language, Delegate Pena-Melnick, on the diversity for the board and the award stuff. And I will reach out to Tech Prince George's and Delegate Barnes if you want to have continuing conversation, more than open to talk about how we can get this done.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll make sure you have the contact information for the Maryland Tech Council, which is headed by the Kelly Schultz, former Secretary of Commerce. But then there's also a chapter of the Maryland Tech Council, which is the Prince George's County Tech Council. And then Tech Prince George's is headed by Bernard Wright, former CIO for Prince George's County. So there's a lot of moving parts within this. And I know David Iannucci from EDC has also been in conversations centered around this whole notion. So for me, once again, is that I want to make sure that we have touched all our bases before we try to move forward with something that may be a duplicative of what is already being done.
Sure thing. I have spoken to the EDC. I'm very close with the Maryland Tech Council. The Tech Prince George is the only group that you mentioned I'm not connected with. So that contact would be appreciated.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you, Delegate Lewis. Elizabeth, we can get that, and Delegate Lewis, if we can get the amendments to us and making sure that we can be able to continue to move forward, yeah or nay, on next Wednesday. I really appreciate it. So being said, this is the only bill that is on the agenda. We do have other bills that's going to be coming up. We will let you know and announce when, but our next meeting is going to be February 8th at 9 a.m. And I appreciate y'all's time because we know we have another caucus going on. And thank you all so much for joining. Delegate Lewis, thank you for the bill. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Thank you.
You all on the floor, okay? And then
Yes.
in other caucus. Okay, bye-bye.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.